Time is 4:30 p.m. Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 28 September 2021 is called to order. I'd ask those in our audience, if you have not signed the clipboard as you came in, if you would sign that before you leave this evening. Also, everybody, if you could please put your cell phones on vibrate. Roll call member, Danielle.
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Foster. And Mayor Brent Frazier.
Here. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you that are in our council chambers this evening. Also those that will be watching our council meetings on Wednesday evenings on Channel 14. A few announcements for the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow, Wednesday, September 29th, 10 to 11 is Conversations with the Mayor of Historic City Hall. This Friday, October 1st at 10 a.m., there's a meeting with Pelican Rapids Library Board and Pelican Rapids City Council and a mediator here at City Hall. Saturday, October 9th is the Pelican Rapids Oktoberfest celebration in Pelican Rapids. There's many different events to attend, and you'll see them in the Pelican Press. Saturday, 10th of October, street department crew will be flushing hydrants throughout the city from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on Tuesday, October 12th, 4:30 p.m. is our next city council meeting. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? If not, if we'll all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 is citizens' comments. Is anyone here for citizens' comments? If not, I have something to read. This is from West Central Initiative. It says, dear council members, Mayor, Mr. Sullivan, and staff, thank you for welcoming me to your council meeting on September 14th. It was a pleasure to meet with you and hear a bit about what you are working on currently and what has contributed to your success as a community. Thank you also for your ongoing partnership with West Central Initiative. We appreciate your support and working with you. Samantha Van Wishelmeyer. Moving on, item number 3 is additions and deletions to the agenda. I have one addition. Item number 15 is park board grant. Item number 15 is park board grant. Are there any other? Councilman Strand?
3.
Say again? 3. Yeah.
I'd like to share some notes that I took when we met at Town Heights. And that, I suppose that could be...
Could that be under the that discussion?
Number 8? Yep.
Okay.
Okay. And then I pose a question about mailbox location. Mailbox location.
Okay. Item number 16, mailbox location.
Yeah. And then ambulance service.
Okay, 17 is ambulance service. What's 15? 15 is park board grant. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just prompt Steve? We're inviting Ringdale Ambulance to the next council meeting. So do you want to talk about, you want to add tonight, or do you want to just
Well,
wait till
who's coming next week?
Tell Ringdale.
Is he coming
Because we invited him to come because we know that there's some concerns.
Okay.
We tried to get him here a while back, but he was down in southern U.S. doing some stuff.
Okay, I was not aware of that, so
Scratch it out. So then item number 15 is park board grant. Item number 16 is mailbox location. Any other additions or deletions?
Move the agenda with the additions.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same. Carried. Item number 4 is approval of consent agenda. Those items which I'll read. Item 4A is approval of council minutes from September 14th, 2021. Item 4B is approval of accounts payable listing. 4C1 is liquor store report, which is in your packet. Item 4C2 is utilities report. which was on your desk this evening when you arrived. Item 4D is certified unpaid nuisance bill for the following addresses. 418 Southeast First Avenue, amount of $50, 365. Southeast Fifth Avenue Street, amount of $50. 301 Southeast Second Street, amount of $100. 615 Southeast Second Street, amount of $50. 200 Southwest 10th Avenue, amount of $50. 20 Southeast 4th Avenue, amount of $50. 425 Southeast First Street, amount of $150. And also item number 4E is approval of application for outdoor sales lot license at address of 530 North Broadway. Is there a motion to approve this?
Nuisance bill, clarify that, is that on us?
It's the administrative penalty that has not been paid. So when people are told to clean up their places, they get a few warnings and then they get charged a $50 administrative penalty. These properties have not yet paid those. And so now I'm certifying them to taxes so I can.
I don't remember seeing the word nuisance.
Could be.
Councilman Foster?
Pull the minutes.
Which one?
The minutes.
Minutes? Okay, we'll pull item 4A. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move, approve the consent agenda as changed.
For a second? Second. Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Then item 4A.
Again, the minutes, I said they're odd. When we get to the budget, we ought to have a work session. We ought to cover some of the things like our liquor store money, just some general things that we haven't really discussed, but we should clarify so we can kind of work together on, or at least get on the same page or find out where everybody's standing on some of these items so we know where we're going. But if we're going to do that, we should set a date, and we should do it, but my plan was we ought to, not there will be one.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll clarify that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? If not, is there a motion to approve item number 4A with that clarification?
So moved. Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Then let's go all the way down to item number 15, Park Board grant. And we have Kate Martinez from the Park Board here this evening, and she has something to present to us. And there was a handout on your desk with a photo of a gentleman.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for squeezing me in, too. I'll make it quick. Before I get to that, I just wanted to thank Lake Region Electric Company very quickly. The Park Board had reached out to them to see if they would be willing to put up an arch like they did for the farmers market in front of the Peace Trail as an entrance, and they did, and they installed it on Friday. And it's absolutely beautiful. It was completely free. They donated the materials and their time and labor and everything. So I just wanted to publicly thank them. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out because it looks really great. And then moving on to the grant, I became aware of a grant through Lake Region Lake Region Arts Council, one of the Lake Regions, Arts Council for communities to bring in artwork in our area. And so I'm kind of wearing my park board hat and also the elementary art teacher hat at the same time. And so what I'm seeking is permission from you guys to move forward as a park board to apply for the legacy grant. And what that would involve is creating a mural on the side of Jeannie Hovland's building, which is the picture you see there. And the mural would focus on our natural environment. So it would be all nature. The sixth graders, their standards are all on focusing on Minnesota. And so the sixth grade teachers are on board with that. They would do it during my art class time. So they would help local flowers, local, what it would be, butterflies, fish, things like that. And then they'd learn from Paul Johnson, our local mural artist, design and how to kind of combine these into one larger mural. The reason the park board really likes this location is because it's kind of like an entrance to the park. So we see it as like entering into E.L. Peterson Park. And so what would happen is Paul Johnson would come into my classroom and give a one-day presentation to the students on how he goes about doing murals. And then it would be then my turn to teach a unit on it. Students would research what we have locally here in Pelican Rapids and specifically within our parks and the river and whatnot. And then we would send it back to Paul, and he would implement the designs the students created and do his expertise to make it very, very professional into Photoshop, because murals are moving away from painting, which I'm kind of happy about, and into Photoshop to be printed on vinyl. The reason that is it lasts much longer, there's no maintenance involved, and it moves much faster. And so then in the end, it would be printed on vinyl, actually, is a 12-foot by 15-foot tall mural where in that picture you can kind of see there. Jeannie Hovland liked the idea. I asked the school, they approved it. And so yesterday at the park board, we wanted to just come to you to move forward with even just applying for it to see kind of how far we can get. And then also it would be mounted on the buildings, but it would also be framed. So again, it would be the students' ideas and their design, but it would not look elementary at all. It would be Paul Johnson then taking what the students submitted to him and creating one very professional, beautiful mural on the side. Also, once it's mounted, it would also then be finished with a frame around it. The total cost that for the grant for this project is under $5,000. We're saying $5,000 just to give it some padding, but it's actually less than $5,000. And so I'm seeking one approval from the city council for the park board to move forward with applying for this grant. Two, if the city, I'm not quite sure who that would be, would write a letter to show support for it. And three, if there would ever be liquor store money between $500 to $1,000 to put towards this. Grants, specifically legacy grants, are for communities to bring artwork in. And so in the grant guidelines, it says if the community donates money towards it, it's more apt to get funded. And so I can open it up for questions. I think I covered most on my notes. But if there's any questions at all or comments.
Okay, did you say when this would be erected?
Like I would start as soon as I get funded. So you find out, I would present again to their committee in November 16th, I think it is. And then you find out like this, I'm sorry, I don't know, like December 12th, December 15th, one of those dates is like the following month. And then I would kick it off in my classroom right after Christmas break. Mm-hmm. Then it would be implemented this spring. Like it would go very quick. Yeah.
So it'd be up for public display next spring?
Yeah, yep. And that was the other thing when I was talking with Paul Johnson. He also prefers no paint, none of that kind of stuff, because it can actually bring the students' work, implement it right into Photoshop. Then he will, from there, be able to print it on vinyl. It's just a much faster process and a much safer process, too, so people aren't on scaffolding.
Is it subject to no fading?
Yes, yep. Also no fading, yep. It's pretty cool kind of how it's evolved over time. And
What's the life expectancy of something like that?
he didn't say. Shoot. I don't know. But with painted murals, it's 25 to 30 years. And so this is beyond that. If it's painted properly, I should clarify. So beyond that. I don't have specifics from Paul, and I have not myself done anything like this. It's a pretty cool opportunity with vinyl.
Who has a printer that big?
So he is also the mastermind behind the Concordia College Christmas concerts. I don't know if anybody's familiar with those. So he does a full backdrop. So he has all his people. I don't know. And so they all print them that way too. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
So it's 12 feet wide.
12 feet by 15. Yep, 12 feet wide, 15 feet tall. Roughly. It might be slightly smaller, but it's just, that was kind of the estimate he
You're
gave.
looking for a letter of support and also a financial contribution.
Yeah, if roughly between 500 to 1,000, if that would be more apt to get the grant then.
My only question or comment is, a lot of times when we apply for grants like this, they kind of stress don't incur any costs until you get all the signatures, the full signature document of the grant from the state. So that would be the only thing, is just to make sure that, we communicate and work together so you don't incur any costs that they won't reimburse us for because you got ahead of the paperwork, so to speak. Because when you apply for it, they'll let you know, but we have to actually get the document saying,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and showing that everybody at the state level has signed it too before we incur any costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I've done this grant before. I'm familiar with it. And absolutely, no, I would, be very responsible for it.
Is there any, like, is it, the financial ask, is that in any way, it's a legacy grant, you said?
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no requirement of matching funds?
No matching funds. Yep, not at all. That's why this is, and I'm not going to go anywhere else to ask for funds or anything around town. It was just from the city since it's, city.
We have available money now, just money for $1,000. Lots of that, yeah.
I move that we approve the park board to progress with the grant writing, and then the city will provide a letter of support and $1,000 from the liquor store.
Second that. Motion second. Is there anything else you need within that motion? Okay. We have a motion second. Discussion?
The $1,000 in the motion, is that provided pending grant approval?
Yes.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, we have a city audit, and we have Mr. Dean Berkman here this evening from Carlson CPA. Some time ago, a few months ago, we were given a booklet as such from Carlson for our review. And also this evening in our packet, there was a letter here from Carlson, an audit engagement letter, which Dean will speak to. So Dean?
Sure.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Good to be here tonight, and good to hear you got the reports a couple months ago, so you guys have read those cover to cover. So that'll make this go real easy. I'm talking to an educated audience, so that always makes it better. So anyway, well, I guess I'll do the usual walk through the audit report. It looks like everybody has a copy of the report, and it's a big report. It's roughly 100 pages, so I was only allocated an hour, so I got to talk fast. But I didn't know it was going to be 80 degrees, so I'll slow her down. So anyway, no, we'll run through it here and hit some of the highlights and run through the report. And certainly if you have questions, feel free to pop in anytime. So if you do have your audits, if you want to turn to page 2, page 2 is the second page of the independent auditor's report, and at the very top of page 2 is a paragraph that's called opinions. And after we get done doing the audit, all of the steps, all the procedures, basically all of the audit work, we have to issue a report and give an opinion or whatever conclusion we come to. And in this case, this is what we call a clean opinion. It's an unmodified opinion, And in the auditing business, that's pretty much the gold standard. You can't get a better opinion than an unmodified opinion. So, and certainly as a council, I'm sure that's what your expectations are, and that's really the gold standard. And I think from an audit standpoint, that's kind of what it's all about. So, there is a second opinion on this page as well. This year, the city, or for 2020, the city was subject to single audit. And single audit is if a city or entity expends more than $750,000 in federal money, you're subject to what's called single audit. And there's a whole separate audit guidance for this federal money. And the last paragraph in this page talks about it's called the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, and we'll look at that a little bit later in the report, but we also have to give an opinion on that federal money, and that opinion is also a clean opinion, and so just single audit is kind of doesn't happen terribly often, but usually it's when a big project, typically a water sewer project, when that federal money, then those grants are part of that. So, that kind of takes care of the auditor's report. If you turn to page 4, page 4 is the first page of what's called the management's discussion and analysis, and it runs about 12 pages, and we won't go through this in a lot of detail, but I would just say that it's a real good summary of the rest of the report. You know, as mentioned, it's 100 pages, and there's a lot of information in there, so this management's discussion and analysis is a real good summary of the report. And we will look at one page briefly. It's on page 10. Page 10 of the management's discussion and analysis is it's actually a chart, and sometimes it's a little bit better to look at a chart instead of numbers. But this is the governmental revenues, and it's governmental, so it does not include the water, sewer, or liquor. Those are enterprise funds and are separate from this. But the pie just shows where the city revenue by source is. And as you can see, the biggest pieces of the pie are state aids and property taxes. They're just about 50-50 between those two, and make up the majority of the city's revenues. And there's some smaller pieces, but that's it's just kind of a nice chart to see where that public money comes from for those governmental funds. So, okay, let's jump to page 20. We'll get into some of the numbers here. And page 20 is the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. And this would be for the governmental funds, the type of funds that we just talked about. And here we do have a lot of numbers, so we won't get into a lot of detail on the numbers. But if you do look toward the bottom of the page, third line up from the bottom is the what's called the net change in fund balances, and this is page 20. Sorry, yeah, I should make sure I give the page number. It's hard to follow without that. So, yeah, this is page 20, and so the third line from the bottom is the net change in fund balance, and so if you look at the first column there, the general fund. That's how the fund balance changed, in this case increased for 2020. And the next column is really all the other governmental funds, and that decreased a little bit. And but overall, on the far right column, the overall change was was pretty close, and in governmental accounting, it's based on budgets, so your revenues, expenditures ideally, generally come out very close, so you would expect a statement like this to really not have significant changes. There can be, but that's typically if there's a bond issue and timing and things like that. So if you turn to page 23, page 23 is the same type of statement, but this is for the enterprise funds, the proprietary funds, and these funds should be able to operate without the public money. These should be able to operate by user fees, water charges, sewer charges, liquor sales, and those type of things. And if we look at toward the bottom of the statement, it's about 5 lines up. It says net income before transfers, and that would be basically the profit and loss in each individual fund before the transfers. And as you can see, if you look across that line, all of the enterprise funds are doing well. And if you look at the next line there, all of the funds did transfer out some funds to benefit some other areas of the city. So yeah. Just a quick note. We said we weren't going to look at the top, but the liquor fund during the pandemic, it's no secret that the liquor industry, especially off sale, we have some cities that have on sale, and that tends to be kind of an offset to the off sale. But the city, I did look at the sales, and overall they were up looked like about 15% from the prior years. So yeah, it's really a lot of the cities experienced some significant sales increase during the pandemic. So if you turn to page 41, we're getting into the footnotes here, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on the footnotes. There's just one page I like to look at. I think it's has a lot of good information, and just want to point this one out. It's note 6, page 41, and it's the long-term obligations. And this would be the long-term debt to the city, long-term obligations, and the first column is the balance at the end of last year. The activity there, the increases would be new obligations, and then the decreases would be the payments and things like that. And then the balance 2020 is what it is at the end of the 2020 years. So I just think it's a nice statement, a real nice summary of that activity. So if we turn to page 78, we'll jump forward here. We're just about down to our last few pages here. So page 78 is, we talked about the single audit right off the bat here. And this page is, you wouldn't have this page unless you had single audit. And what it does, it shows how much the city expended on single audit, and it shows where the money came from, what federal department, and the type of project, and in this case it's water and sewer projects. So, but that's what makes up that federal expenditures, which again, 750,000 is the key number there. So if we turn to page 86. As part of the audit, we're required to obtain an understanding of the city's internal controls, and we send a lot of documents to Danielle, and she has the privilege, I call it a privilege, of filling them out. Some of them are not that fun, but she does a great job in filling those out and getting those to us, and we have to obtain an understanding of the city's internal controls, and as part of that, we have a couple findings related to internal controls, and the first one is on page 86, And this one is, it's called the preparation of the financial statements and related footnotes. If the city is not getting really the financial statements similar to what we're going over today, plus all those footnotes, either prepared by the city staff or somebody else, and in this case us doing it, we have to report that as an internal control finding, and it's really comes down to a cost-benefit issue. Most of our city audits and most of our audits, period, our clients generally depend on us to do that, but we are required to report that as a finding if that is the case. So the second item on page 87, it's segregation of duties. And segregation of duties is ideally in internal controls. You would like two sets of eyes on everything if possible, and oftentimes that's difficult with limited staff and just limited people to get two sets of eyes on every single transaction. And again, the barometer is ideal segregation of duties. I stress that the city actually has very good internal controls, and this finding again it's related to cost benefit. To not have the finding, the city would probably have to hire additional staff and have additional people look at things, and it's just the cost benefit is really not beneficial. So in our world, both of these findings, I would say, are at about a 90 to 95% rate. They're very common and in our world. So the next one on page 88, there's one more finding, and this has to do with audit adjustments, and really this is related to making audit adjustments for the city's what we call government-wide statements, and really what that's doing is converting your governmental funds to full accrual. We didn't go over those two statements, but the first two statements in the audit report are what we call government-wide statements, and that's basically full accrual for the entire city. And we make adjustments to get the statements to that. Danielle, the city really doesn't need to make those, but we make those, and by doing that, we do include an adjust or a control finding related to that. So, okay, I think we're down to our last item. That's pretty much takes care of the audit report. We do have a separate letter that was part of included with the audit. It's not in the report, but it's a separate issued letter. It's called Communication to Those Charged with Governance, and it's a required letter that we have to issue at the end of every audit. And it's just a handful of items that I run through really quick. And for those that were here last year, you're going to say that's exactly what he said last year, and you're right. So just bottom of the first page, difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did not have any difficulties in performing the audit, and we have to report that. If we did, we'd have to report that as well. The next page is corrected and uncorrected misstatements. That's referring to audit adjustments. During the audit, we always have audit adjustments, and at the end of the audit, we pass those along to Danielle. Danielle posts those into the city books, so at the end, the city books agree with the audit, and that's been done, and that's a very important step, and we have to report that. The next item is disagreements with management. We did not have any disagreements with management. We're required to report that. I always say for this one, management may have a different position, but that's we are required to report that. So the next item, management representations. At the end of the audit, we send a report to Danielle to review and approve, and upon approval, Danielle signs a management representation letter, Danielle or Don, and And that's been done. We have that letter, and that's the date of our audit report and those type of things. The last item there is management consultations with other independent accountants. This is what we call in the business opinion shopping. If the city didn't agree with maybe the way we were reporting their pension, this PERA pension, for example, and called up another accountant and said, I'm not sure, how would you do this? Could you do it a different way? And we are not aware of anything like that, and we have to report that. If we were aware of it, we'd have to report that as well. So that's a run through the audit and the letter. Just a note on the audit. It went very well. Danielle's has the records in great order, and so it goes very well. And the staff, Don and their staff, are very helpful and very accommodating, and it goes just goes very well. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
On page 10, graph, the state aids and payments, does that include I can't remember what the term was this year, but the federal money for the COVID relief type stuff, is that included in that 30%? Or is that separately?
The CARES fund, is that included in the 30%?
Yes.
No, I would say the CARES is included in its operating grants and contributions. It would be, it would either be the operating grant and contribution or the capital grants and contributions. The state aid would totally be state aids. That should strictly be state aid. The CARES money was federal money, so that would not be included in the state one. So.
Any other questions for Dean there?
For safety backups, that type of thing with the computer information, how are we doing that? Are we doing everything we need to do?
You know, I might have to defer to Danielle and Don on that a little bit, but they do document it. We do have it in the internal control, or the documents that they provide for us, and I'll be honest, I'd have to look at them, but okay.
Yeah, for our back, I mean, my three major softwares, the payroll, the fund accounting, which is basically general, and then the utility billing, that gets backed up twice, about every 2 weeks to a off-site, a cloud. But then we also have a server in the back that backs it up every night. And then it stores, what's it, 4 days worth in case something happens to one day or something, so.
So if someone walks off of your computer, you're fine?
Oh, yes, yep. Yeah, the information, none of our information is actually stored on our computers. It's on the server, so.
And that's in the building?
Yes.
In a locked room.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, also under that heading, there's a bullet point for approval to sign the audit engagement letter. Dean, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, that.
Probably doesn't know much about it because I just got the email from somebody else. I'm like, oh.
No, I can speak to it. I can speak. I may not know all the details, but I can speak to it. Yeah, the letter is it's basically it's called an engagement letter. It's basically the contract between the city and us, the auditing firm, and before we start the audit, before we can even get rolling, we need an engagement letter. And so, yeah, it's basically the start of the new year audit. And once we get that signed letter, then we can start, because it's getting close to that time of year where we're going to start looking at the planning and things like that. So yeah, that's just basically the contract to get the ball rolling.
The same contract as the last one we signed?
Yeah, every year it's very, very the same content for the most part. The only thing the cost would probably be a little bit different, but that would be and I'd have to, right off the top of my head, I would have to look at that. But
Danielle or Don, did you have anything to add?
No, no, I mean, he basically summed it up, we sign it every year to start to get the budget or the audit process rolling.
I make a motion to approve the audit engagement letter signed.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to sign the audit engagement letter. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you, Don, for getting all this, and Danielle for getting all this straightened out for us. That you've done year after year after year, so thank you.
Okay, item number 6 is project 89 Colony Apartment Pay Request Approval. Don is going to speak to this.
Correct. This is the utility work that was out there to extend the water and sewer out by the new apartment building on 108. This is the final construction pay request in the amount of $32,767.59. That project is pretty much coming to an end. It's just a matter of getting all the paperwork finished up. Like I said, this will be the last payment to the contractor. There may still be some engineering final pay requests that come in, but this, Bob took a look at it and recommends payment on it, and so
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move we approve this pay request of $13,767.59.
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion, discussion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
And then the only other thing regarding this project is I do need the mayor at some point to sign a certificate of substantial completion that Bob requested, so we can get that off to the contractor.
Okay, item number 7 is Otter Tail Power Street Light option discussion. There was a handout in your packet. Don's going to introduce this and introduce our guest this evening.
Yeah, with us tonight is Nick Cooney from Otter Tail Power, and just a little bit of background. If you recall, when we turned the decorative lights that the city owned back over to Otter Tail Power, we had discussion kind of leading up to this 2024 project where we might want to look at some different options. Otter Tail Power was updating at the time when we turned the stuff over. They were updating their lights to LED, and so what they did was they took and updated the decorative fixtures downtown with something that would work. If you recall, there was conversation about at some point the city would like to have look at some other options leading into the 2024 project to do some different lights. We do know that the ones down there need to be replaced. And just kind of an FYI, just a couple weeks ago, a week ago, whatever, we finally connected up MnDOT with the city, with Otter Tail Power, and we talked about the project and started getting those needed steps and things talked out so that Otter Tail Power can just kind of roll into the 2024 project. So with that, I'll kind of let Nate kind of talk about and answer any questions you might have. I do have the PowerPoint or the handout that you gave us up on the screen here too, and I will turn it on in case you want to reference it. But
sure. So what Don had kind of mentioned, we're prepping for the highway project in 2024. What we'd like to accomplish tonight is establish which fixture type you want to pick. It can be a combination of any of them. I'll have a couple recommendations, but that really allows our design team to kind of start doing some of the design work with these to get some preliminary fixture counts, and then we can obviously build the financial modeling once we get the fixture count established. It also allows us to use MnDOT recommendations as far as light spacing on them, or I shouldn't say recommendation, I should say requirements. They're going to require us to use MnDOT standards along Minnesota state highways and US highways. So the ones we have before you here are the Granville. We have two communities that are one community that's moving forward with a project of one of these, and another one that's potentially going to be moving forward with a project with the Granvilles. They're the largest watt for a post top fixture, and when I say a post top fixture, that means the fixture actually sits on top of the light post or the standard. They all have a banner bracket, and they all have a lighting Christmas light decoration circuit as well. That's next one is the Arlington, is the other post top one that we offer. It's actually a little less lumens and a little bit more money. It is a little bit more decorative. The Granville is probably the more common one that you'll see throughout most communities. Next one down. The Esplanade, we see we're currently doing a project in Fergus Falls that they're utilizing the Esplanades on intersection lighting, and then they're using the Granville for, we'll say, the like the tangent roadway lighting on the sidewalks. So, like I said, there can be a combination thereof, and it's honestly probably what we recommend is more your intersection lighting. For the decorative areas of town, you utilize a Esplanade, and then pick one of the post-top options for your tangent lighting. But I mean, if you wanted to go all Esplanades, that's definitely an option too. Like I said, they all come with banner brackets and outlets. The other one we have, did I send you the aluminum alloys? Yep. So for project scale that we're looking at here with Highway 59 and just some of the lack of existing lighting that is currently on that highway corridor, I'd recommend that we do parcels of each. So we'd probably start with recommending some aluminum alloy coming in from the south, right around that 10th Street Southeast or 10th Avenue, kind of by the Dairy Queen. Get up to basically the high school area, the school area, maybe transition over to some decorative, go through decorative up to the 108 corridor, maybe even a block north of that, and then continue on with aluminum alloy out of town, however far the council or the city determines that they want to go. But that would be our recommendation, to kind of utilize all of our offerings, but stick to, one post-top option to at least keep it uniformed. But you're definitely getting, this is our most value product. You get the most bang for your buck. It looks great. We're seeing a lot of these get installed across our service territory. A lot of municipalities are utilizing these to replace their municipal-owned systems because there's no out-of-pocket cost to them, and they're very affordable at just under $35 a month. And that includes all maintenance, installation costs, and energy associated with it. So the city essentially just washes their hands of having to do any maintaining or maintenance contracts or replacement at all. It's basically just like all-in cost, and we take care of it for you. No locating underground facilities. There's traditionally no upfront installation costs. We were able to, so in our rates or our tariffs, you get 200 feet of wire per light. Anything beyond 200 feet of wire, we went from an upfront cost to pay for that to an additional monthly charge at 11 cents per foot on top of that. So the way we figure is we take the entire wire footage for the project, divide that by the number of lights. So we're not saying, oh, this run was 220 feet, but this run was 180 feet. We just do an average, and most of our projects have been just under 200 feet, which is why we established the tariff at 200 feet. So, any questions on our offerings?
What are we paying out per month for the decorative beams we gave ownership to you?
That you are paying, I can take a look here real quick. So on our new decoratives, keep in mind it's based on a brand new installation. So that's base, duct, wire, standard, and fixture, plus energy. We retrofitted your current municipal white-way system with the only post-top offering we had at the time, so we didn't have any of these other available. They weren't approved by the Public Utilities Commission yet. So we were just basically moving to that fixture cost, so none of those are currently captured in there. And it looks like we have about $450 a month for the post tops, and then another $275 for the Cobra heads, which are south of the high school. So it's in line with, I mean, you're about $720 a month for what we converted.
Ones downtown are very bright.
Do you know what the lumens of the ones downtown are, the watts? I know you just threw something on, but it's just to get a kind of an idea of how these would compare to that.
So the ones downtown right now are, I think, around 46 watts. Like I said, it was our only option at the time with post tops. We had this sitting on the PUC docket, and it took 18 months to get it approved. So they kind of drug our feet on that, but like I said, it was the best option that we had at the time due to so many of the existing high-pressure sodium fixtures failing and parts unavailable for it. So we recognize that they're not very bright, not the most attractive fixture but we played the hand we were dealt at the time. So that's why we're pretty comfortable doing that, knowing that in 2024 they were likely going to get all replaced anyway. And that's really what set kind of the stage of having the city no longer having ownership of the White Way system, and Otter Tail maintaining it really set the stage for Otter Tail to come in and do the lighting in the 2024 project at no cost, upfront cost of the city.
It seems too dark downtown to me, and a lot of it's for safety to me, and the crosswalks, especially by the high school at the top of the hill, and there's trees blocking the light. That's one big issue, but they just need to be brighter, I think, especially downtown, the crosswalk. By the Faith Church, I'd be on the south end of the high school. It makes more sense to me to have the focus down rather than, that just goes all over, right?
Not necessarily. So the post tops actually use a technology called light refraction. So it directs it to the area that you want to light up. These are on a 14-foot standard too, so it's not like they're 30 feet up in the air. You see a lot of this in, most communities that have decorative lighting have some form of post-top fixture. The new post-op fixtures are significantly brighter than the current ones you have. Like I said, the ones you have were the only option at the time. There is no light refraction technology in those. It's literally 2 bars of LEDs that shine down through the openings. That's it. And that was the only thing we had at the time available. So it's a very significant upgrade from what you're currently going to have, and we will update it with the appropriate spacing, which I believe MnDOT recommends around 82 feet between light fixtures for post-top based fixtures of this caliber.
What would be the brightest option for those crosswalks?
As far as decorative goes, or
for safety light?
Aluminum alloy LED 13. It's as bright as you can get.
And they're much higher than 14 feet, right?
That's on a 30-foot pole. Yeah. Same way with the Esplanade as a 30-foot pole. Yep.
I think Don had a question.
Well, I was kind of wondering, that's kind of why I asked about the lumens of the ones that are currently down there.
I don't have that information in front of me, sorry, Don.
You did mention that the ones down there now don't have the refraction technology like these do. Is there any cities nearby that have the Granvilles installed now?
We are currently installing about 20 of them in Fergus Falls that will be done here before winter.
Downtown?
Yeah. On the Riverfront Plaza. What's that?
They're installed now.
They are currently being installed. So the bases, actually we have 2 blocks on Vernon, which is actually right in front of the hospital and the new library. It has 11 lights on it. And then the Riverfront Plaza that's currently under construction has another 12 lights on that particular project. So bases are installed on Vernon. Our light delivery comes mid-October. So we would imagine by the end of October, those 11 in front of the hospital would be in service.
One thing to keep in mind is like he had alluded to, I don't know if MnDOT standards have changed on the state highways or not, but they're going to control the distancing between the lights based on the type of light.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my questions is, I don't know if you've noticed really the spacing of our lights downtown now, especially between the stoplights, and currently what's there compared to what these have for brightness and everything else. Do you think that MnDOT's going to require, say if we went with this one,
Yep.
there would be more lights based on MnDOT standards, or because these are brighter, would there be less number of lights downtown?
So we've seen existing whiteways where we've proposed essentially to do a lumen equivalent project replacement, and MnDOT has said it's not equivalent anymore. They need more lighting. So they'll throw some terms at you and talk about a strobe effect. Well, maybe if you're driving like 70 through a whiteway system, you probably get a strobe effect, but at 30 miles an hour, sorry, I don't buy it. But no, I could almost say with absolute certainty what's there today. If we put these fixtures on there, MnDOT would say, sorry, it doesn't cut it.
So we need more.
They're going to say you need more.
However, we know that the speed limit to downtown right now is 30, technically, it is.
Yep.
But with the project, if it goes as designed, is going to be slowing traffic, so traffic technically will more than likely be going slower than that through the downtown area, maybe 20 miles an hour, as opposed to 30, but...
Right. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. However, you got to realize there's probably a MnDOT engineer sitting behind making these assumptions and mandates.
That's one of the things that we talked about was and the reason that Nate came tonight and gave these options, threw these options out there is because what the council decides to go with for lighting down there is going to help kind of incorporate that into the MnDOT project, and MnDOT can we can start having them discussions about how many we have, are we adding lights, how many lights are we adding, that type of thing, where do we want lights, additional lighting going north, south, east, west that we don't have it now, and what type. So this is a good start to kind of get a feel for what the council's leaning towards, or if you know what you'd like to do, give Nate some direction so that we can kind of start working the numbers on it.
Nate, when is decision day for us?
Really, it's...
What's the deadline?
Well, MnDOT hasn't established a deadline for us yet. However, they have been encouraging us to start our planning process. Being that all of it, our design and our installation requires a MnDOT permit. And the only way to get our permit is to have our design meet their approval and their requirements. So if there's changes that need to be made based on their recommendations or review of the more time we have, the better. And not only that, but material procurement. You don't want to have a big ribbon cutting ceremony opening up the highway and only have half the lights here, So the more we can get a jump on it, the better off we are. It's completely up to you guys what you want to do. You can take as much time as you need. We're still a couple years out from 2024, but I'd say probably end of Q1 of 22 is really when we want to try to get our 80% plan done.
So you're looking at 2 or 3 months from now, you'd like a decision?
Well, we'd like to have our project designed at end of Q1 of next year to get to MnDOT. So sometime before that, knowing that, we'll maybe just say by the end of the year, if we can get a decision on what light type that you'd like to go with. Like I said, and kind of the scale of where you'd like to see decorative placed, how far out you want to really go. That'll be what our designer is going to ask for. So, yeah.
You said the most light is a 30-footer, so would they be further apart then?
Correct. Yep, so the post tops are typically that 82 feet. We see about 150-foot spacing, give or take, with a 30-foot pole.
Does the 30-foot give us much light at the surface, like I'm thinking crosswalk still?
Yep.
Or it does?
Yep. So it's you're going from basically a 68 watt to 133 watt fixture. And just the sheer size of it is much different. But that's what for most of our highway lighting, crosswalk lighting, so the LED 13s are on these aluminum alloys. If you take a trip to Fergus, every aluminum alloy pole has this light type on there. We do have some in the residential area on Lincoln that we actually scaled down to LED 10s just because of the backlight. We didn't want necessarily reflecting on the houses as much. So, but if you want to see them in person, well, you have several LED 13s around town too. So.
Are they the ones that, for example, up on the corner I live on up here? I remember when they changed, it was noticeable.
Yep.
There was a definite cone of light to the ground.
Yep.
No real bleed off of light.
Correct.
So are these new lights that way as well?
Yep.
That's the LED.
That's the LED. They're much more directional compared to a high pressure sodium or an HID fixture, because that HID depended on that refraction on the lens, where the LED just doesn't. It's all directional diodes, and they're specifically pointed in a particular direction, which you get that cone shape, which is why MnDOT says they have to be spaced so close together to eliminate that strobe effect. Yep.
Kurt, do you feel you get enough light from those?
I'm used to it now. I didn't like them at first.
Yeah, so but you got to keep in mind, there's several different options. You probably have an LED 5, which is the lowest offering that we have for that Cobra head style. So.
But all the residential lighting will stay the same, correct?
It's up to the city, whatever they want to do. We are planning on, during this project, asking our designer to make some recommendations on where they think added lighting should be, or at least do a photometric layout of what is currently existing, and the city can essentially take that photometric layout and say, maybe we should add some light in these spaces. Because if I ask a lighting designer to say, figure out where we don't have lighting, she's gonna make it an entire white way everywhere, that's what they do. So it's really gonna be up to the city. We can do a photometric layout of our existing lighting, but you'll have to be the ones to determine where you want it. Some of the past practices have basically been, okay, we want to light at every intersection. That was the standard forever. And then there came some times where councils said, well, we want a light at every intersection plus mid-block, sometimes alleyways. There was just no standard. It varied from community to community.
So that's one thing we kind of talked about, and there's kind of two things that the city's going to be involved in deciding lights. One of them is the Highway 59 and 108 corridor. The other one is getting that photometric that shows all of our existing lights in the residential areas and everything, everywhere else. And they're kind of two different things, but especially, getting this stuff for the 2024 project put in, the design types put in place so that they can go ahead and start working up the designs to get into the MnDOT project. But the rest of it, using that photometric, is the city council and the city's looking at where we have existing lights. It would show us that, and then we could figure out where we want lights, not in the highway corridors, but in the residential neighborhoods and other places, industrial parks, wherever, that we'd like to have additional lights, and then it would just be a conversation between the city and Otter Tail Power. We wouldn't need MinDOT for those parts. So there's two parts to it.
Is that scheduled on the calendar?
No, it's just.
No, that'll be in conjunction with our designer. So you'll likely see the entire scope. So it'll have the photometric layout of what the existing lighting is along with the highway design in there.
Would I be out of line if I just asked you guys to present us some designs and we could look at them? And I mean, I don't think, I looked at this before the meeting and, you know,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
you guys have got the expertise on this, so
Yep.
could we see what you guys think we should have maybe?
I mean, that's fine. I can talk to our designer to see if there's much of a difference in spacing based on the two post top options, unless the council is leaning toward one of the post tops. At that point, we can do a preliminary design with what we would recommend and what our lighting designer would recommend and present it to you at that point. But I just don't want to have to have her go through designing with, say, the Granville and you guys are set on the Arlington.
Which is the actual brightest on the ground light, the Granville or the Arlington?
The Granville's the brighter one.
Yeah, because you can see by the lumens, it's
Yep.
quite a bit different.
Yep.
Well, just the brightness alone, I personally would go with that one, you know?
Yeah.
Light is.
Yep. It's the most common fixture out there too.
You don't need light.
Yep.
I wanted to point out on this picture, the one on the left side of the screen there, that's right downtown by Service Food and Fergus. Okay. If you notice, the building's there.
Yep, it is. So this,
Go down there at night, look at it.
this lighting goes from the intersection of Union and Lincoln all the way out to where College Way is at, is a complete white way. Then there's intersection lighting and some lighting on the divided highway portion of Lincoln as well. It also goes up North Union up to the railroad bridge. And then we recently completed a stretch on Cavour, which is a block north of Lincoln downtown. And then we also completed from basically South Union on Vernon all the way out to Pebble Lake where Highway 210 is. So basically out by Minnesota Motors, Dairy Queen. That's all been converted to this aluminum alloy as well with LED 13s and 10s in the residential areas.
But these lights weren't, you guys figured out the spacing of them with the city. You didn't have to worry about spacing standards from MinDOT on these particular sections.
Well, we didn't include the city on the spacing. Our designer designed this accordingly, and we use kind of a rule of thumb of, I mean, you don't want to stray too far from MinDOT stuff or kind of what the general guidelines are, industry standards. But on a project like this with a roundabout, as we discussed with MinDOT, they might have some different qualifications or requirements that need to be met. So.
What conjunction with Councilman Foster said, I guess, you know, seeing this for the first time this evening, it'd be nice to see some options. I guess I'm not ready to make any recommendation at this point this evening.
That's fine. We can get some designs done up. I'll probably have her proceed with using the Granville fixture as a base. We'll do what, you know, a combination kind of like what we talked about of aluminum alloy and mix of the decorative between the Esplanade on the intersection lighting and then the Granville's is the tangent lighting. Is there any set areas that you want to see those boundaries at? Otherwise, do you want to just kind of leave it up to our discretion on where we feel the decorative would be appropriate to start and stop? And then how about as far north? I know at one point it was talked about all to the boat ramp. Do you want it, can't forget the county highway, that number 9, do you want it to stop there? Those are some of the questions I'd like answered before we make our designer do a whole bunch of work that she doesn't need to do.
When you guys do the metrics, you'll see on there where our decorative light poles are now. For starters, where they are now is probably where we'd like to see them. Replaced with decorative for decorative, and for starters anyway. Unless you guys, as you're driving around, pay attention to where there's decorative lights where they end now and see where you want to extend them to maybe, but.
Well, my push would be right at the crosswalks, at the top of the hill, right out here.
Yeah.
Liquor store, the ones I mentioned.
Yep, for sure. We're going to definitely utilize that LED 13.
And
That's
then the very south, by Southtown,
mhm.
there's kids.
That's the
across-
10th Avenue.
Ye- Yeah,
Okay.
there's basically no existing lighting out there. There's,
Kids
it's,
cross the road,
right,
There's a lot of foot traffic down there.
yep. I mean, good thing Southtown's got some bright lights, and that actually is what lights up the roadway and the ditch quite a bit, but I would definitely recommend extending the lighting down that corridor for sure.
Do you want to see it extended to Lake Region Avenue? By the corner, the gravel road just south of.
Heck, we'd love to put one right at their entranceway.
Do you want to go out that far?
I don't see a lot of kids and pedestrians.
I think probably though, maybe just before the Lake Region where, where the Napa building is.
Yeah.
To eliminate, there's a lot of foot traffic that goes
12th
back and
Avenue.
walks on that sidewalk.
Okay,
Yeah, go there, and then going north at least past the turkey plant to 9 or,
okay.
yeah.
You
I don't
want-
think we need to go all the way out to the boat ramp, but
Sure.
How
at
about
least,
them- How about them residential areas along the frontage road out there though? They're in the city limits,
And they do walk on 59.
and they walk on 59, so if
Yeah.
you want to look at going up to.
Maybe the golf course road.
Golf course
To the
road.
golf course road?
yeah.
I'd like to do that.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be enough to get us a start, and we can get a design. We're currently waiting on MinDOT to get us their grade plans or their curb line plans. That way we can adjust our spacing accordingly, but we can start on getting something mocked up anyway.
Same thing on east and west 108, because when you go out east 10, or west 108 now, we got the apartment buildings, we got that subdivision out there, there is no lighting on that road, and people walk on that road. Yeah, we're gonna look at putting pedestrian infrastructure in there, but I think lighting needs to go out as far as, well, it's considered 9th Street, which goes out to the transfer station. So there should be appropriate lighting out, all the way out there.
Is that development?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
At least on Swan Boulevard.
yes.
Swan, that's what I was
Yeah.
looking for. And then probably out the Borough.
Out the Burr Oaks.
And then,
Or right when you start going, curve out past Ann Lane, out that far too.
Sure.
And that takes care of the highway corridors.
You're talking,
and Lane maybe, not all the way to Borough, or,
Burr Oaks isn't in the city limits.
No,
no.
Ann Lane,
And Lane.
yeah, to the intersection of Ann Lane and Highway 108.
Don, you want to just send me like a screenshot of a map with some marks on?
I can, based on what you guys
Yeah.
tell me, I can
Yeah,
just draw a line.
it'd be helpful for our designer, so.
Anything else you need from us, Dave?
That's it. Anything else you need from me? All right.
Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 8 is 2024 street project discussion information. And there was 3 handouts that you were given this evening. One was from the Pelican Rapids City Park Board. The other one was from Councilman Strand, and the other one was a letter addressed to Pat Strand from Minnesota Department of Transportation. John?
Yeah, let me start by saying I'm the one that put this on here, and the reason I put this discussion on here was more kind of informational, but because of what we have submitted and laid out there, maybe it is more of a discussion. But, we had initially, the reason I put it on there is because I wanted to inform the council about the cancellation or postponement of the public information meeting that was scheduled for September 30th at the high school auditorium. When I met with MnDOT about it, they contacted me and wanted to talk about it and felt that it should be postponed due to the council's action on the petition. And kind of the reason they wanted to postpone it is because the whole purpose of that public information meeting was for MnDOT and the city to present to our community the planning, the result of the planning and discussions that we've all had that MnDOT was working on, so that they would show the community, here's the designs that the city of MnDOT have been working on. And then, let the community ask questions regarding that design. Well, to MnDOT, it was evident that you couldn't go into a meeting and talk about a unified plan that the city and MnDOT had been planning on and working on together and had agreement on when the council just took that action, because it just gave MnDOT, really just saying, okay, we're not unified. You guys are thinking, your business community and the council based on your action are thinking this when we're thinking this. So they wanted to postpone that public meeting. We're hoping to reschedule that for the end of October, but we needed to take a step back, have some discussions, some meetings, and see if we can both get back on board with a unified project that they would present to the community. Some of the things that, and I know that MnDOT wanted to sit down with a couple of the councilmen at a time where there wasn't a lot of other things on an agenda or a lot of other individuals a part of the conversation, just wanted to have a couple of councilmen at a time and sit down and just talk about their concerns based on what they've been hearing, the information they've been getting from the community and from their own research or whatever. And they had wanted to do that last week, again this week, with a couple of the councilmen each time, and sit down if they're willing to do that. Last week we did sit down, just Tom Pace and I, with Councilman Markraft and Councilman Strand, and just had some discussion about what their perception was, what they've been hearing, questions and concerns that they had. Some of the things that came out of that was really kind of interesting, because there were concerns and questions that they presented to us that we had never heard. Nobody had called up and asked these questions. And one of the things that came out of that was, the concerns about the roundabouts in Detroit Lakes down in their downtown area, and how people don't have a positive view from our community about those because of some of the things that they've seen or experienced or heard up there. And MnDOT just wanted to make it clear that those roundabouts up there are not the roundabouts they were talking about here. These are bigger. Plus the ones up in DL, when they were first put in, they were virtually flat. And Mark and Steve, you can surely add to anything I comment on or say here too, because you were part of that discussion the other day, but they were virtually flat. And DL went back because they saw, and these weren't on a MnDOT highway, so MnDOT had no control over what was put in. But DL had to go back and revise those to have that little raised in the center so that it was more obvious that you're not supposed to just drive through it, you drive around it. Ours are going to have that 2-inch lip on them, that raised lip, and so they are a bigger roundabout and they're designed differently. The other thing was, there was apparently comments going around or rumors going around that a downtown restaurant with these roundabouts in is not going to be able to do a drive-out or a drive-through like they had hoped to do and planned to do. And so, Tom Pace during our discussion, clarified that too. This business owner, this isn't going to affect his operation at all. In fact, when we found out early on in our meetings, monthly meetings with MnDOT that we've had for the last year, 2 years about this project, when that was discovered that that business owner wanted to do something like that, MnDOT changed the design of the roundabout to accommodate him being able to put a drive-through in there. So if that business owner would have ever asked the question or made a comment about, hey, I understand I'm not going to be able to do this, we'd have been able to clarify, but we never knew that he had a concern that he wasn't going to be able to do it until we met the other day. The other thing was a comment about with the roundabouts in, the Veteran Memorial, the cannon down on the north intersection is going to have to go away. That's not going to be able to be there anymore. And again, that was clarified. We had never heard that before. Nothing is going to change at that monument. Nothing is going to be affected. The cannon stays, everything stays as it stands today. So that was clarified. And then the other thing we kind of talked about the last time Tom was here with the council about the loss of parking spaces. And he again reiterated that on Highway 59 corridor through the downtown area, not the whole corridor, but through the downtown area, there's only a loss of 6 parking spaces, and some of that is due to the fact that we're going to have bump outs in the middle of the street where the crossing is now, that makes pedestrians more visible. Because they're kind of walking out so traffic can see them instead of standing back on a sidewalk and cars are parked there, so you can't see them until you're already there, unless they walk out into the drive lane to look for you type thing. So there was only that loss of 6 parking places. So I just wanted to kind of share that information with the council and just give you the reason for the postponement, and we're hoping to redo it again. Any comments from elected officials, Kurt or Councilman Strand, regarding the meeting or anything else you want to talk about? I know Steve had handed you this.
Well, you took all my information on.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
I'm sorry. What else to say?
Well, you just here. Just here.
You only got a list here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go on. No. No, Councilman Strand, one of the questions he had and wanted to really get, get clarification on was the space between the building front and the curb line. And that's what his drawing represents here. Just to kind of, for those that, really hadn't thought too much about it or weren't clear on it, he kind of shows from the storefront, there's right along the face of the building, there's a 2-foot buffer. And then you get that 8-foot shared use path that's for pedestrian use, bicycle use, or whatever, 8 feet wide. And then there's another 2 feet buffer. So if you think about them 2 buffers on either side of that sidewalk, that's 12 feet that really can be used for pedestrians or whatever. Because you're going to see people, walking through the buffers or whatever. But it's going to be 12 feet wide.
It was clarified too that the buffers are just the flat surface, the same as the shared use path.
Yeah.
They are separate.
They're just clear space.
Yes.
That has to be there.
Yes.
To separate the pedestrian use area with the boulevard, that 12.5 or 5.5 foot boulevard section, that's where streetlights go, planters go, whatever, kind of trees, whatever it is, that's what goes in that 5.5 foot boulevard space. And then there's the 6-inch curb, which is the same standard curb that we have down there now. And then from that curb going the next 10 feet is the parallel parking. And then the next 12 feet from there is the driveway. So I think that's what Steve's trying to portray here. And Steve, the only thing, you can definitely talk about your text up on top if you'd like to, if you would. Just so that I understand what you're trying to convey. The only thing that I'll point out is the third bullet there, where you say that the city portion of 20 million is 6 to 7 million, and MnDOT pays our portion if we agree to their plan. They don't pay for our portion. It would be if MnDOT wasn't doing their project, as I understand, and the city was going to do all this, it would be $20 million. There is still going to be, out of that $20 million cost, there still is going to be about a $6 or $7 million cost to the city, and that is to pay for our portion of sidewalk infrastructure that's being planned, our portion of the 8-foot shared use path in certain areas that MnDOT wouldn't go 8 feet except for the fact that we want to do that. It pays for our filling in the gaps where we don't have sidewalk now or shared use path that we're going to have, like running all the way up to the turkey plant. et cetera, in the other places that we've talked about. So there is a cost to the city of about, and we don't know that number yet, we're still waiting to get that, but it's anticipated it'll be about 6 million. And then there's also the 6 million that's our water and sewer infrastructure. It has nothing to do with MnDOT's project. So I could be wrong here, but that's what I always thought, was that there still is a cost to the city for our portion of the sidewalk pedestrian infrastructure. So Steve, if you want to talk about the rest of that, I appreciate that.
Well, I just have, I'll pick out a couple of things you didn't say. What was new to me a week ago, they talked about taking trees down in front of West Central and the high school. They said they talked about the high school before, but I don't remember. But those big trees in front of the turkey plant, and they are obstruction for some of the truckers, I can see that. But anyway, that was news to me, and they're ash, and they're attacked by the emerald ash borer. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the bump out down in front of the hardware, in front of the park entrance, they were making that more narrow, so there's no further loss of parking. Those 6 spots we're talking about, those are at the ends of the block. That was new information for me. And as Kurt mentioned, the surface from the storefront to the curb is level. I wasn't sure about that. I thought there'd be places to trip. And then he said the 5.5 foot area is just wide open for whatever, but I think they're gonna demand trees, right?
No, if we want trees, they'll plant them.
Okay.
Because the way I understood the conversation was, if there's ash trees, which we have mostly ash trees on these corridors, they, as an entity, and the emerald ash borer migration, if you will, though it may not be here, ash trees are going the way of the elm tree. You know, so they, since they're working, are offering to take them out, because we're going to have to potentially later anyway, probably later. And a lot of the trees are pretty mature and probably not going to last many more years anyway, not particularly those ones, but a lot in our town. And they did offer 2, I think, outside the road right away and near road right away in private property situations where a windstorm or whatever, a dying tree could potentially fall into the road right away. They don't even take that out at no cost to the property owner. That's what I understood.
Yeah.
And generally, it's the ash trees that they're concerned about, because that's where we're at with ash trees.
Yeah, and when he also explained about the trees and these other plantings that we could do or whatever, he said typically in their budgets, and their budget is $20 million, there's about a 2% number that is used to cover these types of things. And so what, if we want the trees taken out and nothing goes back in, they could do that. If the trees, the ash trees are taken out, the city wants them taken out, and we want them replaced with another tree, they will do that at no cost to the city, as long as the overall total plan for plants and that type of thing stays within that 2%. If we want 10-foot trees everywhere that they take trees out, and we tell them the kind of tree, and they can do that and keep within that 2%, they pay for all of it. But if we want 20-foot trees, or 25-foot trees of a certain variety, and now they've tickled over that 2% budget, then the city has to cover that difference to get that. The other thing about that 5.5-foot boulevard, where they put lights and those types of things, when MnDOT does their planning, they basically are just looking at, in those spaces, they're going to put, like for those that went to Glenwood, what they did down there is they put, rock bed, decorative, grasses, wild grasses and stuff in there. in rock beds, so they don't have to worry about mowing them and that type of thing, but obviously there's maintenance required in those areas because of weeds and whatnot, and that's all in the city to do that. So that's what MnDOT puts in. But if we don't want that, those areas where we could do that would just be concrete, except where the trees and that stuff is. We can put concrete in place of those types of things. That is an added cost to the city, because it's more expensive than if they just put the vegetation beds in with rocks or whatever. So that's an added cost to the city. So that's just a little bit more on that 5.5 Boulevard piece there.
I think maybe Tom Pace referred to it as a 2% beautification budget.
I have 2 more points. This is a repeat, but we learned at the last meeting that the main business district will be shut down for, what, 2 months, weather permitting?
One lane at a time. Was it 1 lane at a time?
No, they're going to be shutting it down because they got to pull up everything to get
But I
the
think
infrastructure.
so many of us envision, the whole place is shut down for 2 years. And
Right.
And it will be a mess, but anyway, he clarified that. But here's the big shocker for me, was the street runoff has to be treated before it goes into the river. Did you know that? You did? I did not know that.
That's water department.
Oh, well, we're not doing it now, right? I mean,
No, not now.
so how big is that tank, Brett?
No, we're talking about holding pond or holding area.
Where is that gonna be?
MnDOT still has to figure out their storm drain, their runoff issue, because it is their issue. They can't, used to just run down and drop from the bridge into the river, and they can't do that anymore, so they have to figure out where they're gonna bury a treatment system, a tank, whatever, but that's on
It's
them.
just all done with a catch basin and then put into our city sewers.
No, they can't put it in the sewer system because it's a storm runoff. They have to basically catch it, treat it, let the solids settle out of it, and then it can run into the river at that point. They just can't let it flow into the river. And so they've got to still figure out that piece of it, the storm drain.
But how big would that tank be anyway? You get a heavy rain?
Yeah.
They're like a holding pond like they have behind West Central Turkeys.
Yeah, but you're gonna put it right downtown, Brett?
No. This will fill up the pipe.
Tom talked about it potentially, they're still trying to figure this part out. He said it could be a tank structure underneath the sidewalks, or buried in the ground somewhere, or, a pipe that runs it somewhere and.
Have some kind of baffling system.
Something,
Drop off the
yeah.
solids.
They still need to figure that part out. Plus, I think there's some opportunity here for the city to be able to change some of its runoff, because their runoff pipes meet our runoff pipes. So like when you think about the pipe that comes down First Avenue from up by West Central Turkeys, and then it goes underneath Highway 108, and then it runs between, I think somewhere along the west side of OK Tire and Alan Johnson's building, and then it comes out over by the river over there. And that's a smaller pipe, and they've had, kind of, not necessarily issues with it, but they wanted to do additions on their buildings. I talked to Brian Olson about this the other day. They wanted to and thought about doing additions on OK Tire or whatever, but they can't put a building over that storm drain system. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity, working with MnDOT, to maybe just quit using that pipe, since they're digging all their stuff up and all that stuff on 108 anyway, and we can talk about just rerouting our drain system and possibly theirs, as it goes into ours, into all that wetland area to the west of OK Tire. Create a whole different new area. And with that in mind, they might be able to divert some of the stuff that comes down Highway 59 and goes to the bridge downtown, divert it over that way, which creates less runoff to the downtown area. So there's some things that we want to talk to them about as they're talking about the one piece they haven't figured out or completed yet, and that's the storm drain or runoff section of the project.
I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah, the other two pieces of information, like I said, one was from the Pelican Rapids City Park Board, named just in the letter, they wanted to keep the bicycle path on the sidewalk.
Right.
And then the other letter, I have not read this through.
Tom's response to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I have not read this myself.
Yeah, I just read through it at some point. They responded to it. I kind of saw, the emails. Matt Strand thanked him for the information, thought it was very interesting information, and he did ask them for some more information. So, because they referenced some things in that, and they did have links at the bottom of the document that shows where you could go to get more information on these particular topics, but they had mentioned something specific to Pelican Rapids, and so Matt did request a copy of that report that they did specifically on some of the things they talked about in Pelican specific in that email. So I don't know where that's at, but I imagine they will follow up with getting Matt what he's looking for. So that's the gist of it. I think it is good information exchange between the downtown business owner and MnDOT.
So in saying all that, we need to set a special meeting next week with MnDOT.
Yeah,
City Council.
yep, so this is where things are at. Because of the resolution, again, because we're trying to figure things out, MnDOT has asked Brent to call for a special meeting next week. The only thing on the agenda item, so we're not, kind of rushed through because we've got other agenda items. The only thing that's going to be on the agenda is going to be the 2024 project. It'll be a public meeting, but between MnDOT and the city, they set the special meeting. Tom Pace from MnDOT, as well as the next couple of levels up from him from the central office, will be here. So it'll be a great time to ask, have conversations about things that Tom can't really commit to because he's not the guy in the central office making the decisions. So he'd like to have a special meeting set with the city council.
And we're looking at Thursday, October 7th. Does that work for everyone? Yeah. Same time? What time are you looking at?
Whatever time you guys want to have it.
Do we have a normal city council meeting?
It could be 4:30, it could be at 5 o'clock, could be whatever.
So I don't know my calendar.
That we won't work for the week. It'll be our weather.
You won't be here?
Probably not, but it's 80 degrees, then it will be.
Okay. So what time would you like to see the meeting set for? 4:30? Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
So Thursday?
So would someone like to make a motion to set?
I'll move, we have a special meeting on 4:30 on Thursday, October 7th.
Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? 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 All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
I'll let Tom know.
You're going to let them know now?
Yeah, I'll know.
Okay. And that is a public meeting, it's open to the public, because we'll have a quorum of council in here. Okay, item number 9, elected official email address on website. I think Councilman Strand wanted to address that.
Well, I can.
Okay.
I'll do it. Councilman Strand got a hold of me and asked me to take down his Gmail address because his city-related Gmail address off the website because it had been hacked. And if you recall, and he pointed this out to me, you guys didn't ask to have it put up there. I put them up there, I let you know that I put them on the website, and this is where they are, but I put them on the website because of during open houses or whatever the planning commission comments that were, the planning commission steering committee was talking about, there was some that had alluded to the fact that the council aren't very or approachable or whatever. So I thought, well, this is one way to make it so that if somebody wants to get in contact with their elected official, they could just look up their email address and send it to them. Well, somehow Steve's had gotten hacked, and I think we know how now, just from talking with Brent about it. We think that somebody kind of through Brent's Gmail got to the rest of you, maybe other of you guys have experienced it too. Anyway, so my response to Steve was, well, I'm not going to take it down unless the council as a whole want me to take it down. But then he went on to tell me that, well, I'm just going to shut it off or delete it at my end, which is fine. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, well, if he was going to do that, then there was really no sense in me having it up there because, you know, he wasn't going to be checking it anyway. The nice thing about the email is like in, you know, obviously the reason we put them together is so that we could communicate with the councilman, and it's been a useful tool. And the other thing about taking it down, in my thinking was, I didn't mention it to Steve at the time, but after thinking about it, I thought, well, I could take it down, but if you look at the way it's on the website, it's not very hard to figure out what his email address is going to be. If it's not there, people are going to be able to figure it out because each one of you has a 1 PR, a 2 PR, a 3 PR. If there's no Steve's emails, they're going to figure it out. Anyway, so, you know, I did take it down again because I didn't see if he wasn't going to be looking at it that it really mattered anyway. But I wanted to have the council talk about it as a whole because you know, I kind of think they should be there. Steve doesn't want his up there, which is fine. That's his prerogative. But to get some sense from what council would like to see done as a whole, because you know, I didn't ask council prior to put them up there. I just put them up there so that people could communicate with you guys, especially with the projects going on individually or whatever. So. Steve, do you want to add anything to that, or am I missing?
Well, a bigger part of the story is my identity was stolen, my personal and my business. It's been an absolute nightmare. And they have all my information, and the bad guys started using that one. And I just said, will you take it off? I don't have a solution right this minute. But you can put a note on there, just call City Hall and leave a message, I'll call them back. But it's been an absolute nightmare. And I just
But that happened prior to this, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
April.
Yeah.
But it's been an ongoing nightmare. I'm furious.
And I didn't have obviously all that background, but and it wasn't from the Gmail that they stole your identity yet. But it's just one piece of information about you that they have.
Absolutely everything on all of my family. Just live it.
So with that, you know, having that, I mean, just to throw it out there, who wants it up there? Who doesn't want it up there? Can we do it this way where you just, whoever wants it up there, I'll leave it up there. Those that don't, I can put in under Steve's, I can put a comment. If you want to get a hold of Councilman Strand, just contact City Hall, we'll give him a message. I can do that for each one of you. How do you want to do it?
Mine you can leave as it is.
We can individualize it.
No, I don't have a problem with mine up there.
Mine's fine.
I did get suspicious emails from the mayor that I'll be pointing out to you after the meeting to make sure. I didn't open them, but I knew it wasn't them.
Yeah, and if you ever get an email through them emails too and you're not sure, don't open links, click on links, don't open attachments, call and get a hold of the person that says they sent it to you. To protect yourself.
I don't care, but I'll be honest with you, I consider that city property, and I don't use it ever, other than Thursday when the packet gets sent out, and it maybe. So I never check that thing for email, so I could have 1,000 on there, and I would have no clue.
And that's something that I thought.
Until Thursday.
And that's something that I thought about too, because, you know, there was information that was sent out to you guys from the city attorney, and I got to thinking about that and thought, Well, they sent it directly to those email addresses. How many of you guys are actually checking them on a regular basis?
I
And
never
that was
got
kind
on
of-
until Thursday.
Yeah, and that was kind
Download
of,
the packet and then use it here.
that was kind of the intent of the email addresses for the councilmen, so that they could be accessible, and some people, the community could send them things, but if you're not looking at them, I guess.
And I'll be honest, I've never had anybody from the city contact me, I mean, from the community, contact me at that email address. They all know my home number. I get messages many times a week.
Yeah.
I saw today I had one email from a person from the community, and that's the first email I've ever gotten on that, outside of Tom and Danielle,
And that,
Right.
they might have got your email.
1,000 from the League of Minnesota
And
Cities.
that community member could have got the email address from
I
here.
can't believe
so.
it, so cities, like.
So do you feel you got directive then?
Yeah, I'll just leave it like it is today, right now. The only change I'll make is just under Councilman Strands, I'll just put, if you need to get a hold of Councilman Strands, just call me, leave a message at City Hall, and we will get the message to him, or have him call you. I'll put something to that effect.
And I can work on a solution with you later on, it's just right now, I just.
No, that's fine.
This would be too much of a workload, really, let me know.
No.
People kind of know how to get.
It's not too much of a workload now that I've kind of realized that you guys aren't checking these things. So when I, like, for this evening's meeting, the city attorney sent you from their office, all you guys, something. And so that made me think, I wonder if they even saw it. That's why I called you today to find out, because I started thinking about, I bet they're not checking them. So it's, we're gonna have to start calling you when we have information. Other than Thursday, when the packets come out, you know to go and check your emails to get the packets, but outside of that, from now on, if we know that there's something, or if we send you something via the city emails for you, we'll follow up with a call or a text or something to let you know that we sent something.
Another conversation we'll have to have eventually is that at least my tablet, I mean, like, if I had to shut it off now because the battery is almost, I mean, they're.
We've
They're
talked about getting different ones.
I went to my own largely because the other one was pretty unreliable.
And mine will shut off, mine will kick me off of the packet, even if I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
It'll kick me off.
We need to update those, and we'd like to look into something else. I don't know if you guys like the screen sizes of them, but that's a conversation we gotta have, because it's time to update them.
Okay, let's move on here. Item number 10, Pelican Rapids Pool Committee minutes. There was 2 sets of minutes, May 10th and June 24th in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
Sure.
We have a motion, is there a second? Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same, motion carried. Item number 11, administrator report.
Should we talk this first?
Oh, yes, yeah, we can do that. Item number 16, mailbox location. Councilman
I
Smith.
just like a little bit of help, like, 6th Street Northeast. All the mailboxes are on the other side of the highway. Tell me how that could ever be changed. Is that impossible? We have elderly people that have to get across one way.
That's set by USPS, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the post office would have to be a part of the conversation as far as moving mailboxes, because a lot of them are placed to make their mail deliveries more efficient, so,
I think it honestly is a requirement, like, up on my street, I'll just use, when I moved here, I called the post office. They told me where I had to put my mailbox, how I had to be, how far into the deposit curve. And I know, my neighbor across the street, she had always gone to the post office, but now was like, she wanted to put one up. And they required her to put it next to mine, which was across the street from her house.
So they make less stops that way.
Well, and it's the delivery side or something.
Yeah, right.
So
Mine, they had me put mine in, and then they wanted it changed, so we had this big discussion about that, and finally they just left it where it was, so.
They gave me a printout that I had to go by.
Yeah,
So is there any point in trying, I mean,
Well, you could talk to
should I
them.
try on my own? What do you think?
I think it would require, to talk to
Talk to the postmaster.
postmaster and say, what would be the odds of this, just one day? You know?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, item number 11, city administrator report, Don.
Yep, since the last meeting, we had a department head meeting, worked with the clerk to set the agenda and get ready for this meeting. I submitted the Project 90 pay request, the PFA, that's for the county project, or no, the CASA projects, that's wrapping up, so we could get our PFA money and pay the county for our share of that project. I continue to work on personnel issues. One of which, just an FYI, our utility clerk decided to move on to a different job, and so we are posting for to fill that utility clerk position again. So that'll be out for a couple of weeks, and then we'll hopefully get some applications, go through interviews, and bring somebody to council. We're still looking for liquor store clerks also. On September 17th, I attended the virtual meeting with MnDOT and Otter Tail Power to talk about the streetlights and getting that kind of rolled into the 2024 project. Also on the 17th, that's when I had a meeting with the mayor regarding the postponement of the September 30th open house and kind of what we need to kind of do going forward. And then I met with the mayor, Councilman Foster, and People Service regarding the MPCA and chlorides, the chloride concerns that the state is coming out with, and we've got some information that we need to provide to the MPCA. I continue to work on the response to the email that we got from them, which the council hasn't seen, but Councilman Foster and Mayor Fraser have, and so I'll work on a response to that. I attended as you all did, the House Capital Investment Tour of the swimming pool and the bridge. I did get an email from Senator Rasmussen, said that he thought things went very well, and the House Capital Investment Committee really received these projects in a really positive sense. So that's good for us in getting swimming pool funding from the state, hopefully. As I alluded to, I attended a MnDOT meeting with Councilman Strand and Councilman Markcraft. Attended the Planning Commission meeting last night. I also met with Faith Church, a representative from Faith Church regarding a project, and then down there regarding a project that they're looking at doing, paving some parking lot and putting up a different building in place of that colorful building they have down there. Also, we've been getting zoning and construction permit applications for people that are starting to try and get things done around their houses or whatever, around their properties before winter. And so I've had to go out and do some inspections and meet with some people regarding those. And that's all I've got.
Question for Don?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 12 is mayor's report. Some of these on here, what Don just talked about. I attended to a 2024 Pelican Rapids Complete Streets meeting via Microsoft Teams technology. Met with Councilman Foster, Administrator Sullivan, and People Service regarding our roadmap to meet our chloride effluent limits at our wastewater treatment facility. I, as well as all of you, and I appreciate your attendance at the swimming pool and the dam when the State Bonding Committee came through, and Don said we got favorable comments thus far, and I hope that moves forward. Attended a meeting on September 27th with Administrator Sullivan, members of the DNR. Excuse me, we haven't had that meeting yet. That's coming up, the meeting regarding Pelican Peak and the sidewalk on the dam. So scratch that, Daniel. Got ahead of myself here. Yesterday I met with staff from Senator Tina Smith's office and also local foods, local places, personnel, West Central Initiative, discussion relating to the commercial kitchen at the former senior citizen building. And this staff of Senator Smith's, which is coming through this area looking for agricultural related stops. They visited the we talked about that site. We couldn't have our meeting inside the former senior citizens building. We met outside in Veterans Park. And they also went out to the Gar shop to look at the business they had there. And I also met with Administrator Soda to review the agenda for this afternoon's council meeting. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item number 13. This is a closed meeting regarding pending litigation, City of Pelican Rapids versus Travis McLeod and the Public Employees Retirement Association of Minnesota. The agenda item is pending litigation, the City of Pelican Rapids versus Travis McLeod and the Public Employees Retirement Association of Minnesota. This portion of the meeting will be closed pursuant to the Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3B. The grounds for closing are as follows. The city needs for absolute confidentiality outweighs the proposed purposes served by the open meeting law in this case based on the following. Absolute confidentiality is necessary since city council and legal counsel can have a candid and open discussion to determine the available legal options to handle the litigation, including response strategy and possible areas of reconciliation. The purpose of the closed meeting is not to make a decision behind closed doors, but to instead the purpose of the meeting is to determine the legal options for handling the litigation. The only business to be discussed is the pending litigation. An open session would be detrimental because it would take place in the presence of individuals involved in the litigation. A closed session would benefit the public because the ultimate outcome of the litigation may impact the finances of the city. I will now entertain a motion to close this portion of the meeting.
I'll move to close this portion.
For a second. Motion second. Discussion.
Mr. Johnson, before we close the meeting, do you have anything that you needed?
No, I was interested in the MIMDOT.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. And you've got the next meeting date, right? Okay.
Okay, the time is 6:26 p.m. The city council will now go into a closed session via Zoom. Only the city council and authorized city representatives may be in attendance for any portion of the closed session.